Let's get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Adriana Machado, and I'm the founder at Briyah Institute, so a benefit corporation based in the US that bridges innovation, practice, and purpose, inspiring leaders to change, to transform organizations, and build what we call the impact economy. So an economy that pursues financial returns alongside good for people and planet. And it is possible to do so. Briyah is just a small example. We have a whole movement of B Corps around the world to attest to that. So this webinar is the 10th of Briyah Institute and the third of a series called The Era of Leadership. So now it is time for us all to embrace our unique leadership journeys wherever we are. Big or small, it really doesn't matter. I think the size of the job is okay, but the important thing is the mindset. So the mindset that I'm inviting you to cherish in 2021 is that of questioning what is, finding new ways to collaborate, to evolve as individuals and collectively, coming up with new narratives, new worldviews. So I propose that we shift from this old way of thinking linearly, fragmented, compartmentalized, and thinking in terms of systems in a more integrated way. So in an interconnected way, and looking to regenerate the systems that are not working so well, such as health and healthcare and agriculture. So in January, we kicked off the series with a webinar that talked more holistically about a vision for the year. In February, we discussed the economy, going deeper into a model that's very systemic, the donut economic model by Kate Raworth. And today, it's my honor to be joined by Nayana Rizzo and Pete Martinez. So let me welcome our guests. So first, Nayana, thank you for being with us. Nayana is a seasoned public policy and sustainability professional who has led public policy and government affairs teams in different corporations such as Johnson & Johnson, with me in GE, Syngenta, and other trade organizations like the AmCham, the American Chamber of Commerce in Brazil, the Brazilian Sugarcane Industry Association, UNICA. So Nayana is immersed in this global transition movements to the new economics and shifted gears to take on multiple leadership roles in the impact economy. She currently leads investor relations and stakeholder alliances at Belterra, a startup focused on scaling up regenerative agriculture by implementing and structuring market access and value chains for agroforestry systems across Brazil. So welcome, Nayana. We also have Pete Martinez with us, so welcome, Pete. Pete is the chairman and CEO at Game Changer Tech LLC and SIVOTEC Analytics, high innovation enterprises at the intersection of sports, health, technology, and big data analytics. Pete is an international entrepreneur. He has led numerous high-impact initiatives in high technology, business consulting, healthcare, and education. During his 32 years tenure with IBM, Martinez he was vice president for global business services and the senior location executive for IBM in South Florida, right there in Boca Raton, right, Pete? He was the original IBM personal computer team. So he was part of that team who created the personal computer. So if you're doing this through Zoom today, it's thanks to Pete. So that's impressive. And he was one of the founders of IBM's Internet Division and e-business consulting. He's also a research affiliate at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, also known as MIT, and a visiting professor at Florida Atlantic University and Florida International University. So welcome, Pete.
Obrigado, Adriana.
So we usually begin with a poll to test the temperature in the room and see how much people know of the subject we'll be talking about. So get ready to answer the following question. So let's see here. We are going to be talking about health and agriculture, but we'll also be talking about regeneration. So let's see. Have you ever heard of the term regeneration? So if yes, you understand it perfectly and you apply it, click on number 1. If you have read about it, you understand it, but you want to learn more how to apply it, yes, click on number 2. If you have heard about it, but you like to learn more, click on number 3. And if you have no clue what we're talking about, that's also fine. Click on number 4, okay? This is why we're here. We're here to share with you and hopefully we'll learn more. So here are the results. Most people have heard about it, they understand it, but they would like to know how to apply. And that's awesome, because we're gonna have some very practical examples from our speakers today. Some people have heard and would like to learn more, and we have people who have no clue. So it's our job here today, you guys, to explain a little bit better what we mean by regeneration. So thank you for answering the poll. And let me start by saying one thing that I learned when I was reading the first time about regeneration. And regeneration is the opposite of degeneration. So anything that is conducive to life is regenerative. So when we make our decisions, if we ask ourselves, is this conducing to life? So you have a better chance of doing something that is regenerative. If this is destroying and simply, degenerating a process, a system, or something, then it's likely not to be regenerative. So that's I think one question to ask yourself. So we want to invite you to go from the notion of depletion, scarcity, competition, and move towards this mindset of nurturing, of abundance, of collaboration. So you kind of explore the notion of individualized but connected. So you can unleash this power of co-creation that is so beautiful and so needed today. So in order for us to design our products, our services, to define our actions, our narratives, so I invite you to also take a look at how living systems operate, right? There is an emergence that is so particular to living systems, that it's bringing health and this collaboration of the parts interacting, these relationships that are formed between the parts that make the whole bigger than the sum of the parts. One good book for you to get inspired is this book by Daniel Wall. So Designing Regenerative Cultures. It is like a Bible. It has a lot of very good concepts and principles. So you can always refer to some reading to also complement the understanding. But without further ado, so let me ask our wonderful guests here today what they think of the world today. And let's start by setting the stage for this conversation, because this is going to be very practical. We hope to inspire you with good example. But let me start by saying, why, Pete and Nayana, why do you believe that this conversation is relevant? And what is your personal view of the world we're in? So I'll start with ladies first. Nayana, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, Pete. What an honor. I mean, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. Very impressive. I've said that to Adriana too many times, and it's still true. Well, it's just so great to talk about this this theme today, because causes have always moved me, be it access, climate change, health, democracy, justice. I think I'm a corporate activist and a diplomat, corporate diplomat by heart. So the causes have always been the why I do things. And when we're living a moment such as this one of a crisis that's not only sanitary, economic, social, and political, but we also live a moment, I think, of a values crisis and of the narratives that we are told and that we tell ourselves, right? So it's a very, very serious moment and a critical moment where people are losing lives, people are suffering with mental health issues. And as different as it may seem to say this, it is also the opportunity that we have, the same exact moment, to create the momentum and the impulse necessary for us as humanity, as human beings here, to use our imagination to recreate the society that we want to live in. So we've been standing on the foundations of our society as we see today for too long. And this shift in mindset when Dri brings the idea of changing narratives is really to reflect, reimagine, and reset. And we've heard this word many, many times over the last year. What we believe is going to take us to a different place into the future. So to me, this is where regeneration comes in. Is when we look at the initiatives that we have around the world, such as the donut economy, such as the European Green Deal and others, we are saying to each other that we want to regenerate. We want to act in a way that we leave something better than we actually found it. And I think the leadership of this era is the leadership that's going to take us on this journey.
Thank you, Nayana. Beautiful. Pete, your views?
That's a wonderful introduction, because if you look at the most prized thing we have in this world is our health. It is more important than any material things. We all strive for health. Yet, the industry that we have delegated that responsibility to, it's called health care. If you think about it, health care is actually not health care, it's disease care. Most of the time, and 95% of the transactions in this industry are when you're sick or injured. What is going on the rest of the time when we are wanting to be healthy? So if we redefine health as optimum mind, body, and spirit, then we completely redefine the norm, the paradigm of what is health, because we know that there are healthy people and healthier people. What is that all about? So to use your words, we've been working on the degenerative part of health, which is when we're sick. We need to concentrate on the regenerative part of it when we're actually achieving optimum performance of ourselves. So we're dealing with an industry right now, healthcare, that is very linear, incredibly compartmentalized, and never looks at people as systems. We fragmented the body many years ago into very small little pieces, like if there was no relationship between the mind and the rest of the body. And what's so fascinating about this conversation is the relationship between agriculture and health. It is the energy source for the body. So it was not by accident that we had two of the most important subjects in this world combined in this session. So thank you, Adriana.
Thank you, Pete. And if we use the old mindset of GDP only, gross domestic product, we discussed this in the last webinar when we discussed Kate Rayworth's work, because she's challenging us not to think in terms of growth, but in terms of thriving. So if we think of in the old way, we think of healthcare as you described, Pete. This is 1/5 of the US GDP, right? So people are making a lot of different things, and it's an industry that's vibrant, that's growing. But as you well described, it's based on disease, not on health. And the interconnection with the other industries is so important, because if we don't perceive that this interconnection exists, we're not going to be putting our attention to it. So another striking number is that agriculture, for instance, which is food production or food security, right? And these techniques and mechanisms to bring food to our table. It is sometimes 4% of GDP of some countries, but it can be up to 25% of the GDP of the countries. So we are talking about, in the old ways, of moving the economy with these industries. But if we don't look at how, not only how much, but how we're producing our goods or are bringing our food to the table, or how we are living our lives and making use of nutrition as a tool for health, we are not going to, have the world in prosperity as we all, I'm sure, want that to happen. We still have 8.9% of humanity in hunger, which is, the 21st century. Come on, you guys. And it's been a year since we've been living with a global pandemic. And it's probably not the last pandemic to hit us. So there are enough arguments to say that we need to shift the mindset. We need to rethink. We need innovation, right? As we as leaders talk about innovation all the time, right? The need for doing things differently. So that brings me to my second question to you. What can we do differently? So can you share some of your views about how to innovate in the areas that you're working with? Pete, I think I'll start with Pete and then go to Nayana. We'll invert this order now. Pete, please.
Sure. The first thing is completely redefine what our concept of health is all about. We typically define health as the absence of disease. No, it's the opposite. Disease is the absence of health. So the moment we fragment that, The second one is we have given total responsibility to our health to physicians. That has led to a severe problem because if you look at the economics of the healthcare system, they're all based on compensation based on how sick you are. The sicker you are, the more money I make. That's backwards. It should be the incentive to be healthy. So one of the keys responsibilities we have as individuals is take responsibility for our own health. We are the CEOs of our body. We have to become aware. We have to become engaged. One of the things that I always found very interesting about the healthcare system is how culturally do you define your customer? And the healthcare system defines their customer as patient. Think about it. You look up patient in the dictionary is both a noun and a verb, and it says somebody willing to endure pain and trouble without complaining.
Wow.
It's self-evident. It became true. We sit there, we put up, and we shut up. You mentioned it's 20% of the GDP in this country, but it's actually a whole lot more than that because no other system taxes the other industries more. Think of how much time we spend in a doctor's office waiting to be served in work hours. So it's completely irrational. So we have to turn responsibility back on ourselves. And there are several tools and technologies available to us now that were not there before. One, our understanding of our genetics. Second, our understanding of our cognition, our brain health, and understanding of our nutrition. There are systems now, there are technologies that allow us to combine these through artificial intelligence and come up with very personalized approaches to what our health, our personalized health is all about. Not everybody else's. Personalization, ownership of your health, and driving yourself to optimum performance.
That's beautiful. So it's integrating different knowledge areas that were segmented, fragmented before, and making them in a way collaborate for us to be able to produce this outcome. Beautiful. Nayana?
This is something that reminds me exactly of the turning point when I decided to pursue this career change into the impact economy. I looked at health, and I worked with health and healthcare systems for a while, and agriculture also. And I looked at it and I said, well, this is weird how the two sectors are not interconnected somehow, because health is intrinsically connected with how we nurture ourselves, as you both said, right? So how do we sit here in meetings discussing health when we're only discussing disease, or we discuss stewardship measures that need to be taken in agriculture when we should be discussing how the benefits we can reap from agriculture and nutrition? So to me, health just became this umbrella where I wanted to put everything under it and say, well, there's a clear nexus between healthcare and agriculture here that we're missing. We're not getting the point. Or why are we not getting the point? What's the missing link here? And all of that also gave me a little aha moment when I started thinking, well, and there's a huge problem that we're facing. I mean, COVID wasn't here yet. Now it's another missing link. Climate change. So we talk about health and we talk about people, we talk about food and how we eat, but we decided somehow along the way that we weren't going to talk about nature and the planet when we talked about these things. We cannot have healthy people if you don't have a healthy planet to live in. I mean, that's just, it's so basic. We lost ourselves on the way, when we got here. And when we look at life as a system and recognizing that the systemic nature of our challenges and solutions, so putting sectors together and linking the health of people, the health of planets, we are deciding to understand and observe the feedback cycles that we're already getting from nature. Nature is where our health is entirely dependent on. So when we get pandemics, when we get climate change, it's huge signs of that something is not going right in the health of the planet, and this affects people. We begin to understand that our prosperity, our wealth, our wealth generation, and the health of people and the planet really depend on how well these two things connect, and how we use nature not just as a good, but also as the support system that supports all living things on this planet. So to me is when we discuss connecting these sectors, we are really discussing putting nature in the center of how we operate, and understanding that we have a role in helping nature regenerate, heal, restore, so that we can rebuild, regenerate, heal, and restore. Because nature is really the source of where we get all these things, be it medicine, be it, we understand how nature plays a role in our mental health and all of that. So regenerative agriculture really works and is built upon this logic of how we can approach topsoil regeneration, increase biodiversity, improve water cycles, and enhance ecosystem services that are there so that nature works its magic, supporting also the sequestration of CO2, which is this big villain when we talk about climate change, and strengthen the health and vitality of farm soil. So it is a whole systems approach. And when we talk about healthy soils, we talk about healthy people, and we talk about a healthy planet. So it all starts with soil, actually. And we all came from soil. We're all going back to soil, if we think about it. It is what unites us in terms of living systems in the world. So when I think of regenerative agriculture, and this is where I put my energy in, I think that it is not only serving people, putting carbon back into the soil, which already gives us solutions for many of our complex problems here, but it's also putting back reciprocity into the relationship we have with nature and also with each other. And if we have a chance, I'd like to talk a little bit more about that in the details of the business, Dri, in your next question, maybe.
Yeah, and before we go there, I just wanted to bring one aspect that's very interesting. So technology, innovation exists and has been increasing the amount of innovation we see. We both worked at GE that has technology, or used to have, now it's sold, technology to reuse water. And we're talking about agriculture, which is a sector that uses about 70% of the water in the world, right? So because we've been producing food the way we've been producing food, we have pollution, we have depleting resources, we have been destroying forests, but it doesn't have to be like that. So there is one aspect, like you mentioned, of developing technology that will help us be more efficient in the way we used to produce things, but integrating the knowledge and bringing all these elements together, allowing us to make a decision in a more integrated way, will improve the way we produce food without the planet, right? So there is this interconnection there that I wanted to just point to people, that it is possible to do differently, and we should, right? And we should. So my question to both of you is, you have been having amazing careers and translating this knowledge to multiple sectors. So doing your personal trajectories, and Briyah is all about leadership and igniting leadership through systems change and this systemic approach. So let's go back to you. So your unique journeys have taken you where you are now today, and you have leveraged all this knowledge from one sector to the other. So do you feel that you have been cross-pollinating? I love this word. I learned this from John Elkington, and I'm in love with what he does there. So if you have been cross-pollinating, so what are the benefits of doing so, of being more systemic and integrating these practices and knowledges? And can you share some examples with our audience of how to be a cross-pollinator? Nayana, I'll start with you.
All right. Well, technology and innovation, it really derives from our capacity to make these connections, right? I mean, when we interconnect, we can really catalyze the power of different technologies that have arisen from different sectors. And because of this cross-pollination, today, as I told you, I see health as this umbrella of a very comprehensive approach to how we look at our lives and treat our planets, and how we rebuild back our economies and our communities. So to me, when we think about the nexus of healthcare and agriculture, what we do is we're really thinking about how making food of better quality can actually impact the costs and public expenditure we have in healthcare. It's one thing connected to the other. And we'll only be able to do that if we use technology to streamline this process and connect the links between these two sectors. So as we invest in better quality food, in a better way that we produce food, and use technology for that, and not just cutting edge technology, I mean indigenous knowledge and technology that's been available to us for millions and millions of years. When we do that, we're promoting health and not just treating diseases. So by investing technology in one side, we're actually seeing results coming out of the other side, which is treating health and expecting people to be healthier, and not just having the absence of health, right, Pete?
Thank you. Pete,
That's beautiful. Innovation typically comes into an industry from outside the industry. Like you mentioned, we're all stuck beyond belief in terms of very, very narrow linear thinking. The invention typically comes from Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. He said, if I knew what I know now, I would have never invented the light bulb, because he was naive in his thinking. So he questioned the obvious. And by questioning the obvious, you get there. I always use the term, I'm ignorant enough to think of very simple questions, but confident enough to ask them. And that's a motto we should all have. Never hold yourself back because you think somebody else is smarter. One of the more successful approaches that I've had to business is the term diversity gets overused nowadays. It's material diversity, skin color diversity. I don't believe in any of that. I do believe in intellectual diversity. Intellectual diversity is bringing the best minds that can challenge each other, ask the questions, and evolve into a greater model. So the normal teams that I usually pull together is the scientists, the experts on a given subject, the technologists that are able to enable technology as a catalyst, not as the solution, but actually to help solve the bigger problem, and then the business people. You cannot have two of the three, because either you will not have a substantially scientific method or invention, or you will not have enough money to actually fund the projects themselves. So it's a work of art when you pull the three lines of thinking into the same room and force them to innovate, to change and reinvigorate the model and regenerate. Regenerate because it says it's continuous improvement model, ever changing and constantly challenging yourself to, is there a better way? Is there a better way? Is there a better way? And that's actually the evolution that we need to go through. Everybody comes out of the room smarter. Everybody comes out of the room with more purpose. Everybody comes out of the room challenged.
And to your point, I mean, to have this diversity of minds, of brains coming together to think together, the better to have the different backgrounds. So people who have different color of skin, got different cultures, different life trajectories, will bring different thinking to the table and will definitely ignite.
And even different countries. The group that we have working on genetics right now, a person from Holland, one from China, one from Greek, one from Cuba, and one from the United States. Amazing.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful that technology allows us to be here today, right? Exactly. I am in Miami, you're in Boca Raton, Nayana is in Sao Paulo. We're connected live at the same time, and our audience also is joining us from different parts of the world. So that reminds me of my next question. So interconnections, how to, that is so important. Can you share, please, a little bit of more details into this interconnections, this aspect of interconnections in your projects? So why do you believe that it's effective to tackle issues from this angle of interconnectedness? Can you offer some insights as the benefits of integrating this in the projects you're working with?
I'll use two examples. We're working on artificial intelligence projects, but the artificial intelligence is actually an enabler, a catalyst for transformation. So think of kids with rare genetic diseases, and on the other extreme, people with Alzheimer's, okay? So kids with rare genetic diseases, it would take typically a highly skilled geneticist about 2 to 3 days to formally identify and solve a case. You take a DNA sample, and there's 7,000 diseases that a kid could have. So you start doing all kind of searches and talk to my friends and neighbors and do so. Let me look at this database. We codified the mind. We took the mind of a highly skilled geneticist and put it into algorithms, into software. And therefore, we created artificial intelligence. We took that 2 to 3 day process per case down to 10 seconds.
Wow.
10 seconds. So what we did was actually the transformation, the regeneration of somebody's mind in a capacity where you can have much more storage, much more network, much more processing capability. And now we have done 150,000 cases of kids around the world that have these catastrophic diseases. That's game changing. That is game changing because now it wasn't, okay, we got artificial intelligence, let's look for a problem. The problem found us. The same we're doing now with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is devastating. It is the most impactful disease that we have in front of us because we're getting to later ages in life, so therefore it started to become very real. Unfortunate thing is we don't know the cause and there is no cure. In the last 18 years, there have only been 2 pharmaceutical products that were supposed to help. It didn't. But here's what we know about Alzheimer's. It is a multi-systems situation. There are genetic components of it. There are biochemical markers. There are nutrition aspects. There are environmental factors, all of them. As long as we stay siloed in our approach to it, in the linear thinking, compartmentalized, we will never find the answer because it's probably the simultaneous interaction of 32 different variables that when they hit, the thing clicks. The interesting thing is if you take one of those 32 variables out, it doesn't. So what is that variable for an individual? Because it changes person by person. So the power now of the artificial intelligence, it allows us to take massively large, complex problems. Think of a human genome is about 2 terabytes of data. We didn't have that capability before. So we're doing thousands and thousands of these. So now the capability to take on big problems and not only decipher the genome, but what is the relationship between the genome and nutrition and the environmental factors and the biomarkers and the stress factors from the mind. All of those working in concert will create a unique situation for an individual versus a common or a normal recommendation for a bunch of people. There is no such thing as one size fits all. One size fits none.
Yeah, this is beautiful. And the way you are showing us, demonstrating to us that technology can not only allow us to think differently because we are being used to thinking linearly for so long, and technology can allow us to have this capability of analyzing multiple factors with more speed and more effectiveness, but it will also cut cost in research because we will be able to have information, in a very different way. So I'm very happy that you're working with us in the Brain Health Project and helping bring this vision that it is a multifactorial problem that needs to be treated this way, and you can prevent. You don't have to wait until you have the symptoms to start not only analyzing, but intervening with different habits and different approaches before it kicks in. So beautiful.
You're absolutely right. And what interested me most about the project was we were going down the traditional hole of the petri dish, the mouse, and the monkey. And I said, stop. Why would we waste so much time when we can actually model, simulate a human brain and put multiple factors in it and do real-time research that won't take billions of dollars, but will take thousands of dollars and speed up the action to go forward. Yes.
We'll definitely be talking more about that, Pete, because this is a subject that fascinates me, and the people who know me know how passionate I am about this. Before I go to Nayana, I want to invite our guests to also feel free to ask questions. We're going to be opening for Q&A soon, but let me ask Nayana to share with us some clear examples of how to integrate this different knowledge and why do you believe this is the path?
Yeah, you know, as Pete was speaking, I was thinking, you know, imagining how interesting it would be to invite a farmer to these conversations.
Yes.
Right? How do we connect these worlds? And if environment and nutrition is such a huge part, it takes part on the 32 variables for this disease that will be, you know, such a burden on us. It already is as a society, but as human beings. Why aren't the farmers in these conversations, right? How are we using?
And it's fascinating you mentioned that, because the traditional health approach would be throw foreign chemicals into a body that doesn't need it, okay? That's the pharmaceutical. Toxicity in the body will actually create more problems. Think of most drugs right now are actually recalled within 5 years. What is that all about?
All of the side effects that we hear when we read when we see the drug.
But think of the normal nutrition that the body needs is what we have been exposed to over hundreds of thousands of years. So the likelihood that the betterment of our body through natural foods is very, very real. So if we clean up those foods, if we target them specifically to the individual, and we go through the natural things, like a lot of the work that we're doing now with one of the physicians is, look, it's vitamin A, vitamin D, caffeine, all the things that our body is normal. But what we need to do is personalize it so that it is very, very much in concert to our body. We know that if you and I ate the same food, we would get different results. Our bodies are sensitive, not only allergies, but food sensitivities. So food sensitivity causes inflammation. Inflammation causes chronic disease. So if we back up and said, all right, what are the foods that are uniquely of favor to you? We're well on our way.
And as Dr. Morris Notelovitz always reminds us too, Pete, is the exercise. So there's another component, not only the food you pick and how this can be personalized to your needs, chemical needs, but if you put exercise in the mix, you potentialize other things. So it is always a combination of factors.
Right.
Let me go back to Nayana here for her example.
I think this is a living system. So we're building the examples together, which is wonderful. We're putting this into practice. And if we think of our bodies the same way we think of our soils, we understand that putting chemicals where it doesn't need more chemicals is also the same analogy that we can use. So, and it's really interesting how we're talking about cutting edge technology and AI, which is also used in agriculture today because of the challenges that we have in terms of producing more with less resources, or producing more in a smaller area, or even how do we account for carbon credits today? Because, you know, we've been discussing all of that. We need to use blockchain technology for that, for example. So AI is very much present in agriculture, so we can actually leap and you know, walk into the 21st century of agriculture, if you may. But we can also think about other types of technology that have been present and we're not using. When I talked about indigenous knowledge, or even the technology that nature uses itself. So let's do an exercise here of biomimicry, if we may. If we look for answers, you know, from this source that's been there and using natural technology for so long, this is how we get everything that we see out there when we walk out of our houses. If we ask nature, how does nature create a water bottle? We will not get an answer. But if we stop and we ask nature, how does nature store water? We will get many answers. We will see so many organisms that actually do that job. So we can use biological technology to actually transfer the knowledge to our industrial technologies that are very much needed for different sectors and different industries. And you know, there's a saying that's very, very common and very known, which is medicine is our food. Start talking about agriculture as a type of medicine, and we look at nature as a high-tech space where we can actually get answers from our questions, I think we'll be in the right direction of making these interconnections.
This is so beautiful. And also, I keep thinking of the pesticides that we thought that was the only way to plant was by putting that to get rid of the bugs. And I saw the other day a video of agroforestry. So you have the plants, you plant, you have agriculture farming, but you still preserve the forest. So you use the canopies and you use the way the leaves fall, and that nurtures the soil back, and then you can also have the right soil for planting in scale, right? So is this something you're doing at Belterra? Is it something you're helping farmers do better, Nayana?
Yes, that's exactly.
I read a very interesting observation, which is plants feed us through their fruits and provide oxygen for us so that when we die, they can eat us.
It's beautiful how it's all connected. Let's roll back to the soil, right? I mean, this is where we get life, and this is where we'll return. So food is life. So that's the agroforestry. Yes, Dri, that's exactly what Belterra does, is scale up systems of agroforestry systems around Brazil. And it's really doing the work with nature. So you preserve forests and you actually produce food together with nature. So there is a whole sense that you can use the ecosystem services and the way that nature and forests preserve water beds and biodiversity, so that you can actually take that into your own favor in terms of productivity and preservation. So it's a very interesting cycle of prosperity and shared value between nature and humans and farmers. We hope to have more examples to give you very, very soon as we scale up these agroforestry systems in the Amazon and other parts of Brazil.
And exactly, so the systems are different. So the Amazon system is different from a forest near the coast of somewhere else on another continent. But going deeper into the right questions, you posed a very, very good one. So it's not the bottle, but it's how to carry or to store the water. So asking the right questions and looking for the answers in biomimicry or in nature to see how we can improve processes that we take for granted and we think that they can only happen in one way, but maybe not, right? Maybe not. We have a question here from Paula. Let me read the question to both of you. So, how can we best engage and inspire colleagues and higher up management that regeneration isn't a trend and that this needs to be embraced? Who wants to start?
Go ahead, you.
Paula, very good question. Good to see you here. Well, we are discussing, we are in the middle of discussing investments today, right? And how ESGs and all of the metrics that we're using in terms of economic returns and financial returns are taken into consideration these sustainability or regeneration metrics. When we talk about regenerative capitalism, we're not talking about a tendency. We're talking about actual examples of governments going out there and saying, we want to build back better, like the EU Green Deal, like a donut economy, with examples of how this can be actually done and make money out of it. So great companies have already stepped up and said, well, we're going to go in this direction. To speak about some of these big companies in agriculture, Nestle, General Mills, Danone, Natura here in Brazil, Natura, and other companies, Patagonia, they're not playing. I mean, they're companies that are very much concerned about the returns for their investors, but also their relevance and their reputation before society and before customers, which are all of us, citizens, right? We're much more vigilant, we're much more aware, we have much more information, and we do understand that because of these feedback cycles that we're seeing with the pandemic and everything, we cannot sustain something that brought us here to this time and place. We really need to do something different to be somewhere else in a couple of years. So we have examples of companies who are doing this. We have examples of governments who are doing this. So this is not something that's only in the books or only in TED Talks or something like that. We have concrete examples of a company actually making money and making themselves more relevant as they thrive together with the planet.
So like we said, lead by example. And if we want to inspire colleagues and higher management, let's take a look at concrete examples that already exist to this day, right? Pete, your take on this.
One of the greatest wealth creators of the 21st century will be knowledge. Okay, we talk about the knowledge economy. We talk about data being the raw material of the knowledge economy. The commercialization of knowledge is coming at us very, very quickly. You will see and are seeing companies being valued on their data assets versus their transactional assets. For instance, in our businesses, we have a lot of transaction business. We do many cases either of kids with genetic diseases or cases of, but in the background, we're capturing all of that information, synthesizing it, and looking for trends, patterns that could be useful to another company outside of ours. It could be to a pharmaceutical company. It could be to a health system, to a laboratory, or to an insurance company. So we can consider knowledge to be a product to be sold. What's fascinating about knowledge is it's got incredible profitability in terms of it. You create it one time and you can sell it many, many, many times. So in the work that we do with many other industries, yesterday I was meeting with a CEO of a real estate development company. He said, you're doing a lot of transactions. You buy and sell properties, but where does that knowledge go? Well, it stays within the seller, the broker that went through that. What if you actually captured that knowledge and say, by the way, here's all of the trending information that's happening within your industry, who's buying, who's selling, why, and what's likely to happen next. The predictive modeling is the most valued capitalization that you could possibly have. Predictive modeling is the value of the business because that's the competitiveness of your business. So knowledge as a product, very, very rich.
And not only having the amount of knowledge, the data captured as volume of data, but how can you also make sense of this data and apply it, right? I remember a conversation you were having back in Boca Raton with other people from IBM, and there was one guy that said that they had a security business, so they were taking videos in casinos.
Yes.
And it's just like, it's 24 hours. How can you make sense of all of that image data you're generating? You also need technology to be able to translate into something useful, right?
And it could be as simple as thinking it through the eyes of a pharmaceutical company or an agriculture company. It says, you take the same data, but I need to filter it this way. I'm looking for this type of information. So it could be as simple as a set of APIs that are filtering the information differently. Same database with a number of filters going out. So now you can create multiple sources of revenue from the same core.
This is beautiful. So if we understand that impact is intentional, so we have to make sure we want to cause a positive impact. So that can be your filter, right? So can you tell the machine, okay, show me the alternatives that exist that I can think of by myself because I'm just human, but that exist, be it from either, any culture in the world, any university has produced, or native people have produced over the years and we forgot, and bring those alternatives to me so I can be regenerative and not degenerative. So do you think that this is possible, Pete? You're so close to this world. Do you think this would be possible? Can we ask Watson or anybody for alternatives that are more regenerative when we make decisions?
It is very real, and we're doing it. We're living it. I mean, one of the reasons that I consult on one side, but I have companies, is because I want to get very dirty, and I want to see that the thing actually works and learn from it. So we are doing it. We are commercializing. 23andMe, the genetics company, is valued based off of their database. Glaxo licensed access to their database two years ago for $300 million. $300 million. So the valuation of 23andMe is based on the knowledge base, which Pfizer licensed for $100 million and Genentech for. So you're starting to look at companies being valued as their asset, But the moment you say, my business development folks are not going to look inwardly in my company, what are the other potential sources of need for this data properly synthesized for other industries outside of me? So the business development folks that we have now are actually having conversations. So if we were to extract this data, if we were to model it if we were able to report it as a dashboard or a report or ad hoc queries on the database, what would you do with it? They're saying, look, you write the number, we'll sign the check.
Wow. And if we put regeneration as the key word for searching, it
Yes.
is amazing what we can find.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's check if we could make a change or make a difference here in our audience. Let's have another poll to see what people have learned so far. So let's take a look here at the other question we have for you guys. So our second poll, please. So how do you leave the session today? Let me see. I'm excited about regeneration and I can't wait to apply it. I'm curious to learn more about regeneration and how to apply it. And I would at least look at the concept of regeneration up and see what might make sense for me, my company, my city, my country, or my planet. All right. We have answers coming, and yeah, so more people curious. Some people are very excited, and other people at least are going to check the concept of regeneration up.
You did a good job.
That's right.
So that's the purpose of Briyah. We need to inspire people, and you're doing a great job sharing concrete examples, you guys. And this is amazing because I think that, as I said in the beginning, we can teach by example much more than we can just by repeating theories and repeating other people's thoughts, and by asking questions. So I think that's my message here is let's ask more questions and let's try to come up with ways that we can do differently and intentionally look to regenerate and not degenerate. So let's review processes and whatnot. But before we go, and it's unfortunate we're getting to the hour here, I want you to have the opportunity to also share a message with our audiences today. So anything you want to share in terms of the conversation here today? Pete, if you want to go first.
One of the things that I'm always encouraged is meeting people like yourself that have an open mind, that are willing to risk and are willing to bring people in for the betterment of mankind. I always put in the contracts with all of my employees, number one line, improve the human condition. Everything else follows. So the ability to work with really smart people, really dedicated, passionate people that are willing to make a difference and risk is all the value in the world. So thank you for the opportunity.
And what could be more regenerative than improving people's condition? Thank you, Pete. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Nayana, your advice for the audience here.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Pete, about the contract. That's very inspiring. I would just leave saying, well, thank you for sharing this moment here with you guys. This was very good. I hope to keep the conversation going, and I would just like to leave you with maybe the audience here and us with a thought. You know, make it normal to ask nature for advice.
That's beautiful, beautiful. And we are nature. We are not apart from nature. So if we go in within and we also pause and ask ourselves, you know, we probably will get better answers to the questions. But you also put it so beautiful. Let's ask nature. Let's learn from nature. Let's see what the information that's available there. And with Pete and all the computers putting this together for us, it's going to be even easier to have access to the best knowledge. That's amazing. So this reminds me that we are a system, right? So we are creating here, as Diana said, just the beginning of a conversation that we want to continue. Come to Briyah Institute for more. Stay tuned for more of the webinars that we produce here. As one good friend of mine, Yasuhiko Kimura, says, we don't change the world, we change ourselves. And in changing ourselves and improving our conditions or ourselves, we are changing the world around us. So come and experiment this journey with other people that want to do it too. Come from the network, learn the soft skill of thinking in terms of systems, and enjoy, embrace your leadership journey with us here at the Briyah Institute and with our amazing guests in the webinar. So again, thank you, Pete. Thank you, Nayana, for being with us. It's a pleasure and an honor to have this conversation with you. Thank you, our audience, for joining us. It's amazing to be able to share, and I hope you come for more soon. So thanks, everybody.